We are currently at war, a spiritual Game of Thrones, two crowns that represent two entirely different realms, and the spoils of war is your divinity, your spiritual crown, and your lawful connection to God. The Latin name for crown is corona, and is most commonly referred to as the stellar corona, the outer atmosphere of the sun. This name is used as one of the many labels given to the pandemic, which has been orchestrated to reset the global financial system to rein in a UN New World Order. This is a foretold biblical event. Revelation 13, verse 17 to 18. And no man might buy and sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him have understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, which is 666. At the head of the United Nations New World Order is the Vatican, the Holy See, and the Roman Curia, spelt C-U-R-I-A. But before we move into the next section of this video, it is very important that you are able to overcome your cognitive dissonance. New information that challenges your current belief systems create a blockage and resistance to absorbing this new information. So I invite you to ground yourself by taking some deep breaths and be present. If you would like to learn more about these techniques, Dawn has an ICT recognized online intuition mastery course that is highly beneficial to strengthening your intuition and creativity. We, the entire world, are in the midst of a holy inquisition to combat heresy. In other words, if you are an individual who does not agree with the current narrative, you are judged as being a heretic. Etymology defines heresy as a doctrine or opinion at variance with established standards. It also comes from a Greek word heresis, which means taking or choosing for oneself. As you've seen in previous videos, acts, legislation and treaties have been signed and entered into force over the last century to remove your God-given rights and your power to be a self-determined living man or woman. The Unidroit Treaty of Rome put Australia under canon law, giving the Vatican the equitable title to Australia's mineral and land resources. The Nationality and Citizenship Act of 1945, where the United Nations became the trustee of Australia, making Australian citizens wards of the United Nations. The Declaration regarding the teaching of history, revision of school textbooks of 1939, which prohibited the truth being taught in schools, and Bob Hawke's Australia Act of 1986, which realigned the line of authority, putting the states under foreign administration and corrupt governance. Now remember, if you are a citizen, you are under the jurisdiction of maritime canon law. This makes you part of the Holy Inquisition that in 1965 was formally named the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, which is the oldest amongst the 9 congregations of the Roman Curia, spelt Curia, which is the Roman government, seated at the Palace of the Holy Office in Rome. It was founded to defend the Church from heresy, and today it is the body responsible for promoting and defending Catholic doctrine. Formerly known as the Supreme Sacred Congregation of the Roman and Universal Inquisition, it is informally known in many Catholic countries as the Holy Office. And between 1908 and 1965, it was officially known as the Supreme Sacred Congregation of the Holy Office. Founded by Pope Paul III in 1542, the congregation's sole objective is to spread sound Catholic doctrine and defend those points of Christian tradition in which seem in danger because of new and unacceptable doctrines. Its headquarters are at the Palace of the Holy Office, just outside Vatican City. The congregation employs an advisory board including cardinals, bishops, priests, lay theologians, and canon lawyers. The current prefect is Cardinal Louis Ladaria Ferrer, who was appointed by Pope Francis for 5 years from beginning July 2017. The Holy Inquisition has been in force for nearly 500 years. They have had a few name changes, but they are still an active organisation with the intention to rule the world from the throne of the Vatican. The institution of the Inquisition was abolished in the early 19th century after the Napoleonic Wars in Europe and the Spanish-American Wars of Independence in the Americas. The institution survived as part of the Roman Curia, but in 1908 it was renamed the Supreme Congregation of the Holy Office. In 1965 it became the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Now, the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith sounds such a godly, altruistic organisation. I assure you it is not. 2 crowns and a papal tiara. A crown makes a statement about who reigns over a realm. A crown is so much more than just an expensive hat. There are 2 crowns and a tiara that need to be highlighted so that you can then understand what is actually going on right now. Let me introduce you to the Catholic St. Edward's crown and the imperial crown. The Catholic St. Edward's crown is the centerpiece of the crown jewels of the United Kingdom, named after St. Edward the Confessor. It has been traditionally used to crown English and British monarchs at their coronations since the 13th century. The imperial crown is one of the crown jewels of the United Kingdom and is a crown emblematic of the independent sovereignty of the Commonwealth state. A sovereign state in international law is a political entity that is represented by one centralised government that has sovereignty over a geographical area. International law defines sovereign states as having a permanent population, defined territory, one government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other sovereign states. It is also normally understood that a sovereign state is neither dependent on nor subjected to any other power or state. According to the declarative theory of statehood, a sovereign state can exist without being recognised by other sovereign states. Unrecognised sovereign states will often find it difficult to exercise full treaty-making powers or engage in diplomatic relations with other sovereign states. The sacrifice of our Anzacs defined our Commonwealth under international law as per the Styles and Titles Act of 1927 as an independent, self-determined sovereign nation. For the purpose of this video, the explanation of the two crowns will be simple. The Catholic St. Edward's crown is concave and symbolises the Vatican's control over the government, which places the burden of debt over the realm. The imperial crown is convex in shape, symbolising that the realm is intact and is a self-determined nation. One crown symbolises the jurisdiction of canon maritime law, the law of contracts, and the other, common law, the law of the land. When you know what the difference is between the two crowns, you know who's controlling the crown and the realm and what is going on. The current government corporate logos contain the St. Edward's crown, which are privately owned organisations with Australian business numbers that are listed on the stock exchange and has a prospectus. For example, the Victorian Police has a logo that has a Roman laurel wreath that symbolises the victory of the Roman Empire linked to the Vatican, and the reversed five-pointed star symbolises the reverse pentagram, which, according to Wikipedia, is a symbol of evil and attracts sinister forces because it overturns the proper order of things and demonstrates the triumph of matter over spirit. It is the goat of lust attacking the heavens with its horns, a sign execrated by initiates. The crown at the top of the logo symbolises that the police are under the control of a St. Edward's crown, another indication of Vatican influence to raise more revenue by way of fines. The 1534 Act declared King Henry VIII and his successors as the supreme head of the Church, replacing the Pope and abandoning Rome, thereby asserted the independence of the Ecclesia Anglicana. He appointed himself and his successors as the supreme ruler of the English Church. The Act was repealed during the reign of the Catholic Queen Mary I. England has battled over the centuries to keep the Vatican from invading their land and claiming the crown, and to this very day, this Game of Thrones power struggle is still very much a battle that is presently occurring. King Henry VIII was named Defender of the Faith. Through Parliament, made the Church of England an independent national church that was no longer under the governance of the Pope. The Acts of Supremacy are two acts passed by the Parliament of England in the 16th century that established the English monarchs as the head of the Church of England. The 1534 Act declared King Henry VIII and his successors as the supreme head of the Church, replacing the Pope and abandoning Rome, thereby asserted the independence of the Ecclesia Anglicana. He appointed himself and his successors as the supreme rulers of the English Church. The Act was replaced during the reign of Catholic Queen Mary I. The 1558 Act declared Queen Elizabeth I and her successors the Supreme Governor of the Church, a title that the British monarch still holds. The Papal Tiara. The Pope is the King of Vatican City and wears a papal tiara with 3 tiers. It is also known as the Triple Crown of Baal. Baal, in etymology, late 14th century from the biblical text, says that Baal is literally the owner, master or lord, a title applied to any deity. The first tier of the papal tiara is called Romus Pontifex of 1455, that represents ownership of your land. The second tier is called Attorney Regis of 1481, that represents ownership of your personal property, that is the Commonwealth. And the third tier is called the Convocation of 1531, which represents the ownership of your soul, that is the ecclesiastical see, spelt S-E-E. In Roman Catholicism, an official paper letter or document is called a papal bull. The name is derived from a dead seal or bulla, traditionally affixed to such documents. All legitimate papal bulls were issued on human skin, usually the skin of a sacrificed child or some famous heretic. It is the third and final testamentary deed and will of a testamentary trust set up for the claiming of all lost souls lost to the sea. The Venetians assisted in the creation of the first Sesticavi Act of 1540 to use this papal bull as the basics of ecclesiastical authority of Henry VIII. This crown was secretly granted to England in the collection and reaping of lost souls. The crown was lost in 1816 due to the deliberate bankruptcy of England and granted to the Temple Bar, which became known as the Crown Bar, or simply the Crown. The bar associations have since been responsible for administering the reaping of the souls of the lost and the damned, including the registration and collection of baptismal certificates representing the souls collected by the Vatican and stored in its vaults. This third crown is represented by the third Sesticavi Trust, created when a child is baptized. It is the parent's grant of the baptismal certificate, title to the soul, to the church or registrar. Thus, without legal title over one's own soul, we will be denied legal standing and will be treated as things, cargo without souls, upon which the bar is now legally able to enforce maritime law. Express trust deeds. Unum Sanctum 1302. The Unum Sanctum is an express trust deed. The last line reads, "Furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature be subject to the Roman Pontiff." It is not only the first trust deed in history, but it is also the largest trust ever conceived, as it claims the whole planet and everything on it, conveyed in trust. Pope Boniface III believed that all authority is derived from God, and that the Pope and the Vicar or Lieutenant of Christ was the highest embodiment of his will on earth. This papal bull effectively made the Vatican the caretaker of the souls to assure salvatio. All roads lead to Rome. The United Nations flag shows us that all shipping lanes lead to Rome. The Roman laurel wreath, yet another sign that the Vatican is connected to this story, another chapter in Rome's attempt to control and own the world through morphing of the Holy Inquisition by way of a flu world order. We now know that the game we're currently in is a game of deception. We have been lied to by our government, or should I say foreign occupiers, for over a century. We know that the Anzac sacrifice laid down the foundation of a true line of authority of God, King and country, so that Australia could be recognised as an independent, self-determined nation on an international stage. And this was intentionally taken away from us by way of treaties such as the teaching of history school books in 1939. We know the difference between a red ensign flag and a red 1901 federal land flag. And we know that the United Nations have arrived in Australia for the financial merger, as shown by the blackened Australian flag. And biblically speaking, we are living through a time of biblical prophecy. The King James Bible offers clues on how to acknowledge the Christ within and resurrecting yourself from the dead entity recognised by canon law, and to be born again, so to speak, through the wisdom of acknowledging the Christ within yourself, and by way of the Anzacs, stepping off of the citizenship and onto dry land as a living man or woman. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 to 14. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armour of God, so that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armour of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having the breastplate of righteousness. This concludes part 2b of The Truth Will Set You Free, the Tale of Two Crowns and a Tiara. Part 3 will be focusing on the remedy and by way of navigation out of the system. This video was written and produced and navigated by Dawn Kelly. If you would like to learn more, visit www.dawnkelly.com.au or subscribe to Dawn's YouTube channel, Dawn Kelly. Dawn offers courses on mastering intuition and self-mastery, becoming the ascended master of your own life. With gratitude to Stephen Spires for filling in the gaps to this story and Santos Bonacci. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.